I'm Josh Kirby on Sports Podcast. As always, so glad you're with us on the YouTube page and the audioverse as well. It's pretty interesting. Just made my way back home from Annapolis. It was a Memorial Day little trip and going down DC 295 and just poking up out of the trees. The RFK Stadium, a lot of rich tradition, history that took place when the Washington Redskins used to play there. Most recently, a couple weeks ago, it was announced that the Commanders are making the move back to DC. Joining me is Councilmember Brooke Pinto from Ward 2 in Washington, D.C. Councilmember Pinto, thank you very much for some time this morning.
Absolutely. Great to be here with you, Josh.
Absolutely. There's a lot to unpack. I know we don't have all the time in the world, but just sort of the key nuggets out of this whole thing. First and foremost, this announcement comes that the Commanders of DC strike a deal to move back to the RFK site. And, with a situation like this with a football team moving back to where they once were, some people love it, some people don't really like it, but with the announcement, there's just a lot to unpack. So what are your thoughts on this whole process so far early on?
Well, I am so enthusiastic about the Washington Commanders coming home to play in Washington, D.C., as are the majority of district residents. This land and stadium has sat vacant for over 30 years. And so, working in partnership with the mayor and with every member of the United States Senate, we worked to get the transfer of land from the federal government to DC at the end of last year. That bill passed with unanimous consent. All 100 United States senators voted to transfer that land back, which really set the district on a path to more firmly negotiate with the Washington Commanders to bring the team back, come home, and to revitalize this 180 acres of land to provide the anchor site so that we can develop housing and retail and hotels and green space and really create an entire new area for the city that's going to benefit residents who live in Ward 7, where the stadium is, and all district residents and visitors. And so I am thrilled to support this deal, and we're working to get it accomplished as soon as possible.
So, sort of, you mentioned that transfer of land. What was that process like? Sort of, what you can discuss about that process and how that helps making the negotiations easier with it being District of Columbia, not the federal government.
So, as you know, DC is a unique jurisdiction in that we're not a state yet. And so we have about one third of our land in DC is federally owned, which limits what we locally can do with the land. And so the RFK site was owned by the federal government and managed by the National Park Service. And as a result, it really just sat vacant. We weren't able to develop it or put it into productive use, which is not only an eyesore for the community, but such a missed opportunity of drawing revenue and drawing residents and making this a really special place. And so there were a lot of conversations and advocacy with the federal government, with the White House and the Senate primarily, to really explain to them what our vision was for this land. And I think many in the federal government are thrilled to see the football team come back home as well. So many people have memories of going to games at RFK in the 70s and 80s. And I think it's really going to be an iconic kind of American moment when we can have the Washington Commanders play in the 2030 season, where there'll be no other stadium in the world where you can watch football, look out over the water, and look up and see the National Monument. It's really going to be an iconic, one of a kind stadium and space in the country.
This announcement was made with Commanders team owner Josh Harris, the commissioner of the league, Roger Goodell, and Mayor Muriel Bowser. Were you in attendance for that? And if so, just that ceremony when that announcement was made, it seemed like a lot of people were there in support. What was that like for you?
Yes, I was there. It was really electric. I mean, we had so many people who've been part of the team for decades, but also new people to the team, new coaches and players. And of course, Roger Goodell and Josh Harris, who really see this vision, both of whom have ties to DC and spent time in their childhood growing up in DC. And so there's a real kind of neighborhood tie there as well, which makes this, I think, personally meaningful for both of them. We were also excited the week later for the announcement that the 2027 NFL draft is going to take place in Washington, D.C. So this is really a very exciting time for football and an exciting time for the nation's capital to be part of what will be the Vanguard, not only stadium, but example of a real multi-use development site where we're going to have 6,000 units of housing, one third of which will be affordable, where we're going to have new hotels and retail. 30% of all of the land is going to be green space and parks, and all the waterway will be maintained. The city is going to be building a new sportsplex so that our kids can play in DC. Right now, so many of our families are having to travel outside of DC for their rec leagues and sports leagues, and that's not right. We should be able to have our families play right here at home. And so there's so many pieces of this deal that are going to benefit so many different stakeholders in DC and around the region that make this additionally so exciting for the city.
Yeah, and you mentioned the development of the land around the stadium because I look back and I'm reminded of Nats Park, what that used to once be a stadium and two dirt pits on each side. Now it's built up restaurants, coffee shops, a lot of different spots, which makes it an ideal area. I want to go catch a game. After the game if I'm hungry. There's some eateries along the way too. In your role as council member, when it comes to like a situation like this with the Commanders coming home and the development of land, how do you sort of know this is what we want to sort of do with the land around the stadium?
So I think the future of cities across the country is really this idea of the 15-minute city, where people can walk within 15 minutes for really most of the things they want to do, whether that's go to a game, go to a restaurant, get to work, be able to take transit to where they're going and do so safely with their family. And so last year, I worked very hard and closely with the mayor to develop my public safety package called Secure DC, which had over 100 different safety interventions in it. And we ended the year with a 30-year low in violent crime following the passage of that bill. And I mentioned that to say we need people to be safe when they live in DC or they're visiting DC. And so that was a really important part of this whole process. But when I think about experiences that people want, we really want to make sure that they can have more of a one-stop shop, which is why the green space and the fields at RFK were such an important component of it, as well as the hotel and retail. One other thing I'll just mention on this point that is particularly important to me and something that I'm continuing to work with the team and my colleagues on is making sure that this development provides job opportunities, not only for district residents, but also our residents who have a record and who have served a sentence and are coming home. There are about 14,000 construction jobs anticipated for this site and over 2,000 permanent jobs, whether that be in concessions or sales or in management in some other capacity. And I'm working closely with the team to make sure we're providing some of those opportunities for people who have served their sentences coming home and deserve to be a part of this progress and this future that we're building in the city.
Yes, so you mentioned that too, and how great is it that you have sort of a working relationship between the team and the council, and I would imagine the mayor as well, to make sure everybody's on the same page, if that's the right word.
It's very important. So you and your listeners know kind of in terms of the process. This announcement was made publicly about a month ago, but yesterday Mayor Bowser sent her proposed budget to the council, and now we have about 2 months with the budget. Will we be having hearings with the public, where we'll be really diving into all of the details on financing, making sure this is the best deal for the District of Columbia taxpayers. And some things may shift around, but I believe that it's very important that we secure the best deal possible for the district and we get this deal finalized as the council manages our budget process over the next 2 months.
And with the moving of the Commanders from Landover to the RFK site, there's a ton of opportunity with that, not just the team playing football, concerts, events. And I did hear out there in the media just circling around the potential of a Super Bowl coming to DC. So long term, this could really benefit as an ideal destination, especially when a Super Bowl comes to DC. Fingers crossed if that's what you're looking for.
Well, yes, let me put it out there. That would be absolutely incredible to host a Super Bowl here in Washington, D.C. We would welcome that opportunity. And the current designs for the stadium include a roof, which will be important to that consideration as the league, makes that consideration with the weather when the Super Bowl is played. But currently, we are missing out in DC on so many opportunities for major performers. Taylor Swift, for instance, when she was doing her Eras tour, that tour generated major US cities over $300 million on average. That's just money we were leaving on the table and are leaving on the table because we don't have space for major performers. And one of the things that's really important to me is in this term sheet, the team is committed to about 200 activation days a year. So some of the naysayers will say, oh, well, there will only be 9 or 10 events a year at the stadium, and so that's not worth it. Well, that's not the case. There are going to be activations for concerts, for other sports leagues. We're in conversations with the Washington Spirit, women's soccer, in hopes that they can play at the stadium as well. And we would be the premier location for women's soccer also in the country, which would make me extremely proud. And so there's so many opportunities for fantastic entertainment spaces for people, but also for revenue generating opportunities for the city.
And you speak about revenue generating opportunities as well. The NFL draft just announced in 2027. Have you taken a look at that and see how you can best maybe host, make sure that experience runs the best that it can? Because the NFL draft just this past year in Green Bay, a ton of people were there. I believe Lambeau Field was even opened up for some experiences as well. The NFL draft is a big hit when it comes to the start of basically the NFL season.
Absolutely. We are so excited for this opportunity. And let me tell you, DC is used to hosting millions and millions of visitors. In addition to being home to 700,000 residents who live and work here and send our kids to school, we all are also the nation's capital. And so this year, that's ongoing now, we're the host of World Pride, expected to also have hundreds of thousands, if not millions of visitors. Next summer, we're going to be home to America's 250th birthday, where we're also expecting millions of visitors. And then the following year in 2027, to be home to the NFL draft. So we're thrilled for this opportunity. We're thrilled to show off our great city and make sure that people can come here and experience our excellent restaurants and hotels and music and culture that we have here in Washington.
Councilmember Brooke Pinto, Ward 2 out of Washington, D.C. Before we let you go, Councilmember, just anything that I might have missed that you might want to add about this RFK deal, the Commanders coming home, that might be helpful to our listeners?
I would just say reach out and get engaged if you have questions. I have had dozens and dozens of conversations with residents who've really gone through quite the evolution. First saying, wait a minute, I don't want to spend any public dollars on building a stadium. And then understanding that no, we're not paying for the stadium in DC. The team is paying for the stadium. DC is paying for the preparation of the land, which we would have to do anyways for any development of the site, that we're building 6,000 units of housing, that we're having retail and hotels and green space and a sportsplex for kids. And so there have been so many residents who have, as they've learned more about the details of the deal, have become additionally excited and supportive. And so I invite anybody with questions or ideas about how to ensure this is the best deal possible for DC and for the teams to reach out and get engaged. We want you all to be a part of this process. And we're going to be having hearings coming up, which we'll be posting on my website and on social media to make sure that everybody who wants to be a part of it can be.
And how huge is that people reaching out? You're there answering questions because you want to make sure this is in the people's best interest as well, with so many different opinions going out there in this day and age.
It's so important, and it's a huge part of my role in representing residents in Ward 2 and in the District of Columbia. The good news is these conversations did not just start a month ago. I've been talking about this deal for the 5 years that I've been on the council. It came up in my first debate in 2020. And so I've heard the input from residents around what they want to see at this site. And that input has been advocated for and pushed forward and is part of this deal, which makes me, and I hope the residents of Washington, D.C., very proud.
Council member, really appreciate some time. I know you have a very busy schedule, but thank you again for giving us some insight on the Commander's move to RFK. And I'm sure you all will probably be out at a game once that stadium opens soon.
Absolutely. Look forward to seeing you out there. Thanks, Josh.